So by this point, everybody is no doubt well aware of the Area 51 memes and all the hubbub surrounding them. Apparently, over 1 million people are set to store in the perimeter on September 20th of this year. It should be interesting. But let's be honest for a second, and I doubt that it'll happen. And even if it did, even if by some ridiculous miracle, they managed to overwhelm the most powerful military on Earth and infiltrated top secret base, I don't think they would be exactly thrilled with the results. And I'll just come right out and say it. I guess Area 51 is a red herring, it's a distraction, and it's pretty much always has been. Nothing out there but sand, reclusive scientists, and some crusty ass lake. At this point, I mean, think about it. If Area 51 is one of the most top secrets in Cobra Black sites in the world, then why does everybody know about it? How secret can a secret be if everybody knows the secret? For God's sake, even Obama acknowledged its existence a while back, and that's the whole point of it. And they want you to distract it? So you don't look for the others. But why take my word for it? Who am I anyways? Perhaps a bit of that sweet karma, right? Well, yes, but actually no. That may be who I am now, but I was once a person in a particular interest to the United States government. Most people knew me as Mr. Blue, not my real name, but it is easier to pronounce. I used to be a pilot. I did that for many years, breaking the sound barrier for the first time. You might crap your pants a little bit, but it's all just part of the experience, really. No, unfortunately, the type of work I did was above top secret, and, for all of our safeties, I cannot go into any further detail on what I actually did or who I actually worked for her. One day I was out on classified reconnaissance mission in a certain area where I should not have been. I'll apologize for the way details on certain things, but you've got to understand. The things I'm about to tell you are beyond top secrets. They would kill me 10 times over for uttering a word of it. So here's the hope in that nothing happens anyways. And the mission was going as planned to, and suddenly my instrument started going berserk and my dad and I pressure inside of the cab. What is plummeted, and the speed and fuel consumption gauges looked like they were playing ping pong with each other, and everything began to rattle like crazy, and my alarms interrupted into a symphony of irritation. The next thing I know, I see this bright light soar past me at 10:30, the whole of my graft in a second. I want casually flying along to suddenly regaining consciousness as head. I almost wish that I had it there. I was meant by it, and I'm waiting. At least 24 men in winter camel suits and masks, and they all pointed their weapons at me and screamed in a language which I recognized as English. I tried my best to calm them down and appear unthreatening her, but that didn't stop them from get me into a pair of handcuffs and holler at me into one of their APCs at the beginning of drive away, and the real severity of the situation hit me. I was not going to be saved the people that I worked for. I never said it, but it was always on that if you ever captured, and you are pretty much on your own. With that in mind, I had no real incentive to keep my mouth shut about to be brutally tortured. Is there a former ally which would have never come to bail me out? Yeah, the government says that they don't torture people. But trust me, when they really want to know something, there's no tactic too extreme. And they really wanted to know something, and so I told them about who I worked for, what my mission was, where I grew up, all that jazz. It was all fabricated, but they took the bait regardless, thanks to their severe distress of the Russians at the time. Never actually pretty cool after that. I mean, they wouldn't let me leave the custody, but that was better than me and Dad, or at least it was at first, and they transported me away from my initial interrogation place into a secure facility somewhere nearby. I was blindfolded the whole time, but from the rumblings of multiple vehicles, sounds of doors sliding open multiple times and the distinct feeling of my stomach dropping. I could tell that play taking me somewhere deep underground. Soon after that, I stepped off the elevator and they removed my blindfold. Their leader was a guy with a string face, a thick gray beard and eyes that looked etched from concrete. "You are a black suit," with some simple fact that I didn't recognize. He stepped in front of everyone. "Welcome to your new home. You're so slight." Grand slogan to his face as he said it. I glanced down the dismal gray hallways which seemed to stretch out further than I could see in multiple directions, and they led me down the hall on the right, past dozens of black corridors and rooms, before using me into a cell, and my hands were removed soon after and the door shut behind me. The same man that had me into the facility that approached the window and pushed the intercom button. "We appreciate your cooperation, Mr. Bluewell. I don't believe there is any reason why our time spent together has to be unfriendly. I apologize for all this, but you must realize that this is a necessary precaution that we must take. I hope you understand." I took a moment and then I got it back again. "Wonderful. If you require anything before that, please notify one of our guards outside of your quarters." And with that he and his little entourage turned and strolled down the hallway. That was my very first night in the facility that I eventually came to know as FAST or FEZ. I don't think it's the official name, but I heard several personnel on the base refer to it but that acronym over the years. I still don't know what exactly it stands for. Forbidden and Clothes does Ziggurats, Forsaken Evil, Zoo, Forest Ejaculation, Zeal the Fabulous Elf Zombies. The best that I could really come up with was a fortified experimental zone. It makes the most sense too. All things considered, at first it actually wasn't too bad, and the staff was nice and there was plenty to see around the base, although everyone in a while I would hear the screams just barely. But unfortunately it had been blown to smithereens by whatever that light was, so I couldn't tell them much about it. It took years of incarceration there, but eventually the staff came to trust me almost as much as they did their own comrades. We would laugh and joke one another and soon enough we'll be careful with some might even consider to be friends. I became especially close with one of the scientists that are named Kevin. Kevin was a smart guy and comical too, and he explained to quite a lot of things to me. He and I would spend hours talking on occasions. He was my only real glimpse into what was happening in the outside world, if you would bring him books and movies for us to enjoy together, and he kept me, and over the next 30 years we developed a close friendship that I will always treasure. I must have displayed some kind of intellectual potential, because they eventually started asking for my inputs on various curiosities stationed throughout the base. They only did it because it's one of them complete loyalty and would never be allowed to leave the base anyways. I'm not. For me it was just nice to feel included. The base itself was Play Lily Colossal. They always blindfolded me during transport to any location, but one time I caught a glimpse of the buttons on the elevator and there had to have been at least 50 of them on the panel. I remember the first time they showed me one of the lockdown blocks that were guards posted at every cell, and I heard some very strange noises emanating around me as we traversed the halls. I thought for sure they were about to show me some horrendous beast from the depths of hell and I prepared myself accordingly. As the House of Unseen Things echoed throughout the halls, the lead scientist, Dr. Rod Stevo, rolled back into a mirror curtain and my heart froze from anticipation. In the cell before I said, there was nothing more than a human girl and a great jumpsuit. She was young and maybe 5 years old or so, but there seemed to be nothing out of the ordinary about her. I looked to Dr. Roswell and he flexes his cranial muscles. A few 10 seconds passed when the girl suddenly shrieked like a banshee. Her head tilted back and I saw a jacket and a light teeth emerge from her mouth. Her jet black eyes then lurched towards us and she launched at the window. She struck it hard and fell back to the ground, snarling and hissing like some ravenous jackal. Dr. Roswell, pressed the button again, cutting the gas and posing a questioner, have you ever seen anything like it? And, Mr. Blue, all I can do is shake my head slowly as I watch the demon child talk about it on the other side of the glass, and they found her in the woods outside of Whitehorse with a freshly disemboweled man. She was eating henna and appeared unaffected by the sub-zero temperatures. I suddenly felt like vomiting, but I said nothing. I only stared back at the unusually gruesome girl. What the hell was she? Unfortunately, I was never told anything else about her and I doubt the personnel knew much more. Anyways, I came to show me a lot of very strange things over the years, a giant brownish, orange-haired primer that walked upright and seemed to respond to facial movements. A humanoid being that was only detectable via and-forth equipment. A golden chest that was instantly kill anybody that touched it at, 10 feet tall creature, wrapped in vines and then emitted balance of radiation and blended into environments with perfect camouflage, a monster's fish at least 80 feet in length, frozen and nitrogen, and various abhorrent creatures that I'm guessing were the results of relentless genetic tampering. I had never seen anything like that. All of the monstrous, although not sad that they had no idea what the cause was and, unfortunately, neither to die. As it was the first I'd ever hear of the bizarre phenomenon, I told them honestly that I didn't believe my former allies were responsible, but I don't know if that made them feel better or worse. Throughout all my years there, I had always found one thing peculiar after all the weird and terrifying things that they showed me, and there is never any mention of extraterrestrials, and that's what everybody thinks that these black side facilities house, after all, but nevertheless they made no mention of it. That made me smile a bit when I thought about it, because I had no idea how close they were. The closest thing they had was a set of teeth in its mouth. It almost looks like an eel, but it possessed four iridescent green eyes and a ring around its head, and it didn't live in the water either, but instead it around the ground in a very swift and very unsettling motion. They said that its DNA resembled nothing like anything they had ever found on Earth before. Hence the reason they believe. But we're not. Kevin and I got to talk. It broke my heart, but you would never know it with the enthusiasm in his voice it was. During that conversation, Kevin ended up mentioning something I found very interesting. He told me that he believed that if an alien species existed and they were advanced enough to traverse the galactic canopy and return Earth, then they would obviously be quite intelligent. He said that he didn't believe in any of the Hollywood depictions of doomsday aliens hell-bent on destroying humanity. He thought that they would be a lot more subtle than that. Think about it and you find something intelligent which represents almost no threat to you and the first thing you do is try to kill it. Can I ask skeptically, as I considered his words for myself, that would just be a waste and no species that fancies himself as. Even if they thought that we were destroying our own planet or something, why would they care? There are trillions of other planets in the Milky Way alone. They could pick any of them if they wanted, and natural resources. I chuckled to myself, almost dancing with this conversation. Bobby, learn more about us than we even know about ourselves. I mean, granted, they have to be more intelligent. They could learn up close, understand how humans, aware they would have no need for blood shadow when they could simply inconspicuously integrate into human culture. They have no doubt mastered the art of altering their biology to disguise themselves as humans. I mean, that would be nothing when compared with the attack they would use to get here. You know, he paused from his enthused monologue, put the steam off his glasses. I just sat back, content to let him continue, as I found it fascinating that you can know so much aliens. And they're not warlords, and they're poets, architects, authors, musicians, beings I wish to create. It is the ultimate calling for an entity so powerful. Kevin took a deep breath and reveled in his own explanation, and I can see his eyes floating lazily in their sockets. He then in my eyes and looked at it. He would never give it to me before. It was a light that seemed to shadow all sense of formality, impose a question when she had long since suspected the answer to, "You're not really from Russia, are you?" The sudden accusation caught me off guard. And I found my stomach drop like a lead weight. I didn't say anything and, Kevin, for the longest time you would had a suitable backstory and authentic sounding accent. All the alibis you gave us checked out. He paused and he passed his hands in front of me. You look so authentic too. But there was one thing that you missed, one thing that you just can't fake. He looked me for the first time in decades. I dropped the Russian accent as it was clear there was no longer any. How do you make his way to the cell door? He reached into his coat pockets and went through a black steel pistol with a long snout. I slowly made his gaze and he chuckled, "Mr. Blue, do you wish to go home?" I nodded after pausing to think for a momentum. I hope your allies can forgive us without another. Can you flash the security badge? And the locks on the door gave way emotion for me to rise and follow him. So I did. Kevin glanced back and forth on the hallway and, but due to the late hour and there was no one around, he and I sprinted down the corridor and onwards to one of the security booths. He flashed his badge as I did just outside. Heavenly emerged with wild eyes in backing me to follow. He and I dashed on the hallway and reached the massive main shaft elevator soon after. For the first time, I entered without a blindfold and Kevin punched the button to the top floor and the security code required to power at the security system will be down for a good half hour, but automated distress beacons I've already been activated. That gives us about 8 minutes. We had reached an underground parking facility. Kevin quickly unlocked in here and the two of us hopped in. As he fired it up, the engine roared to life and Kevin accelerated through the lot. I'm on my later and we accidentally underground facility and I saw my first vision on the night sky in over 4 decades, the romance station that the perimeter gates had to tend to stop us. But Kevin didn't crash right through the wire fence of the perimeter, causing multiple lights to activate in our way. What is siren blaring behind us, and this is the what some people dashing throughout the snow. There's a suit in the back. Put it on. I did as he requested without a question and I put the snug polyester. It covered every square inch from my foot to the nape of my neck and it felt incredibly comfortable. There's a dial on your right side. You can use it to mask your body heat and they're going to be after you. You tossed him into stop and continued back in instructions. You can contact your friends with that radio, right? His eyes flashed me as he slowed down to the main road and away from the compound. Yes, Kevin nodded. Make your way north and they won't be expecting that. There's a river up there about 30 miles away from the forest once you find it, until you find a small town. That's the guy at the post office for Mr. White. He's a friend of mine who's agreed to help you. I tried to digest before of information as best as I could and remain confident. It all just happened. So suddenly I asked you, something is in the bag and should last you a good couple weeks, Kevin, and swerved around a corner and reoriented us onto a new dark road. In the sudden influx of adrenaline, a sudden thought occurred to me. What happens to you? Kevin didn't seem to want to acknowledge the question. Forget about that and just get back to your people. And behind us a flurry of light suddenly ascended into the night sky. The whirring sound of rotary blades then pierced the tranquil canopy of the blustery night ship. and I had hoped that I could have gotten you a bit farther than that. He slammed on the brakes. My husband back and forth along the icy road. Take this too. He handed his long barrel pistol over and I accidentally took it. He and I then met eyes for one final time. This is where we say goodbye, Mr. Blue One. Why are you doing this for me? Kevin said, and I saw a certain song of approaching engines grew louder. Was he? You don't belong here. You don't belong in a cage. I don't know where you come from, but I want you to see the ones that you love. Again, his eyes began to water any jobs that his neck before. I look at me in the eye one final time. I hope that she didn't think of us as captors or kidnappers. I hope you see us as you see yourself. I just hope that you can understand a single tear that rolled on his cheek. I put my hand on his shoulder hair. I always have and I always will. Thank you, Kevin shared before I ventured into the blizzard. The journey from then on was long and arduous, with me spending weeks charging through snow and frozen forest. How many machines pursued me for days, but somehow the terrain was brutal, unrelenting. But eventually I managed to find the river, which Kevin had mentioned. By that moment all my pursuers had long since gone silent. I followed the river and I found the town and soon after the man known as Mr. White. He was a kind man and he gladly invited me into his house to avoid the agents. It is there that I have been ever since functional and they weren't entirely sure whether they could even trust me anymore. But I didn't leave them much of a choice when I threatened to go public and expose them to the world and they finally agreed but admitted it would be months before they could reach me. I expected as much and, thank you, Mr. White allowed me to stay with him in a way of their eventual rival. The authorities ruled it as a suicide, a gunshot wound to the back of the head, but obviously I have my doubts about that and truly broke me to learn if one of my true friends' demise. But I knew it was what he had expected. I like to think that is why he chose to do it and furthermore it is the reason that I am here posting this now. Kevin's legacy deserves to live on and this is the only way that I know how to do it. And with that we have come full circle to this message you are reading right now. And to address the original topic, Area 51 is indeed a reuse. A lot of power in his previous role and he told me all about the operation. The real prize is the fast life former president somewhere in eastern Alaska, buried in the snow with all sorts of airborne things and its clutches. If you're going to storm anywhere and that should be the place, just remember to pack a coat. Kevin was a smart man and brilliant. Even if you've managed to make it this far, that I like to think you are someone like him, brave, curious, and with an almost innate sense of wonder that cannot be satisfied. It is my hope that Kevin's ideas will live on through you. My allies would never approve of this message, but I now know that they are wrong. Truth is something that's all. Sentient beings should be allowed to proceed, despite how unpleasant it may be to hear it. It was Kevin's belief that the beings he knows as aliens are already here, that instead of murdering humans as often portrayed in stories, and they would blend in taking an interest in human culture, a society, in art right next poetry and music in hopes of connecting to something truly extraordinary, something that reminds them of themselves. If Kevin is right, then maybe one day you'll even stumble upon such a story for yourself, and maybe you're thinking nothing more than a work of fiction. To entertain you for a while, maybe the author of said theoretical story would seem like nothing more than your run-of-the-mill internet user. He probably just wouldn't come right out and say it would be entirely too corny. You would probably just leave you the pieces and hope that you can understand the truth for yourself. Maybe you truly are, like Kevin, drawn to mystery and prepared to entertain the fantastic. Maybe you'll just dismiss the implications of the words before you because you don't dare believe something. So I'll land. It is because, in the end, truth is not the problem. Believe it is. Maybe someone will understand who or, more importantly, what I really am. Maybe it'll be you, but either way, and I've been away for a very long time, it is time for me to go home. Thank you, Kevin. I will always uphold our agreement.